Figure out. Good evening. We're going to start with our public hearing regarding our district-wide safety plan. This is an annual public hearing that we hold prior to the start of the school year. The district-wide safety plan has been on the website and open for public comment for 30 days. Prior to this meeting, I have not received any public comment. At the end of the presentation, I will check one more time just to make sure. And then I'll go through our slides, and I will check one last time for any comments that they have come through, and then I'll answer any questions from the public or from board education. So we have two safety plans in place. We have our district-wide safety plan and our building-wide safety plan. District-wide safety plan is our public-facing document that relates to the public, relates to the safety and security of the district. Primarily, it informs the public that we have plans in place should an emergency arise. Anything from fires to any events maybe related to lockdown drills to having to go to remote instruction because of a pandemic. So it really covers the gamut around safety and health and our response in those different situations. The district-wide safety plan is posted and reviewed annually for the public. Many times we don't get a lot of feedback on our district-wide safety plan because it is very general in nature, and that is intentional. Because our building-wide safety plan is a secure document, and that's related to specific plans. We do have a board member who will sit on our building-wide safety plan. That person reviews our safety plan with us, along with a cross-section of stakeholders. But these are specific plans and procedures in the event of an actual emergency. And those binders are located with different people in the district. Not everybody who is on the building-wide safety plan has a copy of our plan, just because the people who have a copy, no fewer copies out there, right? The people who have a copy aren't those who just sit on the committee. They're people who play a role in the event of an emergency. The key components are, first, the safety team. They meet annually. Mrs. Wiley runs that meeting. And they are advised by Needham Risk Management. They are our health and safety and wellness company that we consult with. They review our district-wide and our building-wide plan each summer, well, probably more like May, because we post it like the end of June. They review it, they look for updates, and they advise us for any new pieces and parts that may come out. A new addition last year was under Dutchess law, the cardiac arrest law, and use of defibrillators and the education that goes along with that. There are no substantial updates to this year's district-wide or building-wide safety plan. It looks at risk and prevention measures, training and drills notification. Notification was something that came out in the last couple of years. We didn't, under law, have to notify parents of drills. That is something that we now do, and we have to let them know prior to lockdown drills. Roles and responsibilities in the event of emergency, it very clearly delineates who does what. Emergency response plans, communication, and then ultimately, when the emergency is over, what do we do to move forward in recovery? We put these plans up to be posted. That has been posted to date. I have not had any comments regarding our public safety plan. I will look one more time. Do I have anybody online, Ms. O'Connell? Not correct. I list my direct email as the public comments just so that they don't get lost. But we also check the BOE comments page as well. And we have not had any comments regarding our district-wide plan or questions. Do we have any from the board or anybody in attendance?
The only question I had was, I know when we first got the AED machine, we had people that were trained on it. Do we review that training annually when we redo this, just to make sure that we still have people in the building that know how to use it and are comfortable using it, that equipment?
So at the start of each school year, Nurse Rosie does a training with folks. She goes over some CPR basics. She does it at our superintendent's conference days. She goes over the use of the AED machine, and then she also goes over the use of the EpiPens. We have 22 EpiPens that are prescribed to students recently. So she does all three of those, and then she just does basic, first aid. But those big pieces, the AED, CPR, and the EpiPens are probably the bulk of her presentation. Yes.
Okay, and then there were just a couple of typo type things that were in the document, and I was wondering if we could adopt it if those were changed. One was Jen Borbios' name was spelled incorrectly, and the other one was it said under district information it said K through 8. It should be pre-K through 8. is it okay to just adopt it tonight, noting those changes, and then it can just be updated in the PDF?
Yes.
That's in the email I sent you, Trish, so you don't have to remember that.
I'm still finding pre-K, AK.
Right.
Just 6 months tonight.
Right, because when we first did it, and if we don't have an update related to that area, it makes sense that we wouldn't
Absolutely.
change it, but it might, you know, they have just different busing requirements. There's different things that apply just to pre-K that might not to K, so it's probably good to list it there in the, you know, our building information. Anyone else?
Changes.
Okay. Anyone else on the board? Any questions or comments?
Okay, so after tonight's adoption, the updated plan will go on the website, under our policies and procedures. And then this will allow Mrs. Wiley to move forward in September to meet with the building-wide safety plan. They'll review Officer Stone and, the fire department sit on that as well. They will finalize that then. We always look for feedback. Have we had any events that should inform, you know, changes within the plan? And then, we'll start our drills. Thank you.
All right, so now we'll start our regular meeting. We'll call the regular meeting to order at 6:40. Could I get a motion to enter public session?
I'll make a motion to enter public session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are in public session. Could I get roll call, please?
Mr. Jeffrey.
Here.
Mr. Luke.
Here.
Mr.
Here.
Hoffman.
Here.
Mr. Roth.
Sorry, I have to grab a pen. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item E, comments from the public on agenda items. A reminder for those members of the public in attendance, this is one of 2 opportunities afforded to members of the public to comment on or inquire about agenda items. Members of the public will also have an opportunity at the end of the evening's agenda to comment on matters not formally noted on the agenda. You can always submit comments. While we're on, you can submit them via the live stream, or you could always email them to boecomments@menans.org. Is there anyone in person? Anyone online? Okay. Then we'll go to item F, approval of the minutes. Could I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Menands Union Free School District accept the minutes of the July 7th, 2026 reorganizational meeting and the July 7th, 2026 regular meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, discussion items, superintendent's reports and updates.
So we are going to start with CSR first. I have Mr. Scott Wolf here. He is our lead from CSR that works with us on our building projects. We, as the board knows, put our contracts out for bid, and we did our bid update last week. And Mr. Wolf is here to update you as to how that went, what our next steps are, and other pertinent information. Thank you for being here tonight.
Sure. So, quick recap is just noticing, we started this going down the road in 2024. It's been a while, okay? So for those of you who have not been part of the regular part of the process, just a quick recap. The scope of the project was, how do I put it, considered many different aspects over the course of several months, where the board finally adopted resolution vote in March 10th of 2025, to give you some history, for a referendum of $6,725,000 project. So here we are today, now having gone through the design and the approval by the State Education Department for the permitting project. We let the contracts out for public bid recently, Thursday afternoon, received them 4 prime contracts, and I'll just go through the sheet that you have in front of you to kind of recap what they represent. I'll go in numerical order. They may not be that way in front of you, but first is contract 2. We don't contract enough one aside for something else. That's our general construction contract. That person has or that entity has the largest component of our building project. You know, I'll go over that in a little bit more detail. But we had 6 respondents, which is very good coverage for a project this size, particularly this time of year. The second would be contract 3 for mechanical work. And we had 5 respondents. Behind that, contract 4, electrical construction, again, 6 respondents. So we had very good coverage across the board here even with the last one, 2 respondents showed up for the plumbing, which is a little bit smaller contract. So where does that leave us today? Well, first of all, I'm very happy with the amount of interest that we were able to garner. It's in fact. Usually, this school contractors, as you see in front of you, are largely involved in public school work, and I've worked with almost all of them, as you see the name in front of you, at one point or another. So getting their attention in the middle of the throes of summer, when they're blitz elsewhere right now, pay attention to something that's being bid now for a fall start was a bit of a challenge. And well, we did a good job with that communication piece, and I think the numbers speak for themselves. If we had 1 or 2 contracts where there were no bidders, that would have been a failure on my part, in my opinion. So very happy with that. Let me tell you where the numbers lie, just to give you a snapshot tonight. I don't make the summary in front of you on purpose, okay? Because I don't want you to lock in and vector in on certain numbers. This is just fresh off the burner on Thursday afternoon. I'm receiving supplemental bid information from the apparent low bidders, and there are numbers to consider that go along with a couple of alternates that I'll talk about in just a moment. But what it does tell us is that in total for the 4 contracts, their base bids were $5.586, $5,586,600. We had 3 alternates in the project. Alternate 1 was for replacing a select number of interior doors and hardware around the building, some 40-some units that have been identified on previous building condition surveys as being original to the building or exceeded their useful life or have some problems with them that need to be fixed. So we ran that as an alternate. It's a bit of a safety valve. It's low-hanging fruit, so that if something has to give, that's an item that can give a little bit. We can find other ways to accomplish that in future endeavors. Alternate 2 was replacement of an additional amount of exterior windows around the front of the building that were not part of the original scope when the board adopted that resolution. When the board adopted the resolution to vote, we had a limited number of windows on the front of the administration area and down the end of the pre-K wing identified. Once after the vote, we got into thinking about it, and the design team and administration said, you know what, we'd really like to look at more. If we're going to be doing this, what could we do? So we created that scope as an alternate, so that we could get a true measure of what that value is. And on the general construction contract, that's alternate number 2. So just to give a brief explanation, the 3rd alternate was for the electrical contractor. It was for some additional exterior site lighting. Okay, so it's not on the critical path of the building addition per se. So the basically plus the alternates total us all out to $6,009,600. If you back out the value of the windows, because I did mention that it's not part of the original budget, that brings you into $5,789,000. So I'm going to reference that number for the moment, right? And referencing that number compared to what we had in our pre-recommended budget of $5.3 million and change, it leaves us a delta of just over or just under $400,000, $396,600. That's only a delta of 7%. Now, if you think about that, I'm really pleased with that because every one of us in our personal life can think what kind of a percent we've incurred in everyday expenditures since early 2024, when this conversation really started. So we really honed in on what the project value is in a very accurate way. Now, just to underscore that, I'll bring your attention to contract 3. And if you look at how tight those numbers are, one from the sample contractor, 1.7 million, 1.7 million, 1.7 million, 1.7 million, 1.8 million. That's a really tight bunch, right? That tells us that the documents represent a very clear and concise scope of work, and they're all looking at the same thing. So just by way of example, I'm happy to report the findings of the procedures. Now, you say, well, 7%, what are we going to do about this now? Okay, so as I said, right now I'm in a post-bid vetting process right now. We're going to come back to you with recommendations to add on the 24th. Things that we're looking at right now include where we started from a financial aspect, what our bid contingent or our construction contingency is valued at. We went into this endeavor with a 10% contingency. That's about $500,000 using our numbers. We also factored in 20% in incidentals. Incidental expenditures are your professional fees, your inspection services, any supplemental geotechnical investigations when we're digging in the ground, we know the consultant back for things of that nature. Now, Ms. Marina and I have had some preliminary conversations on how we can creatively go about funding some of that or sharing up some of that. Because you do have a little bit of latitude to work in the incidental world there. Now, what I'm going to do is kind of play a little bit of a shell game with those factors. I'll explain what I mean by the shell game. The 10% contingency in a project this size and this scope, I feel that we can manage it with something less, maybe 5.5 or 6%. Once we feel comfortably we're out of the ground digging for our new foundations for the addition. We do know that there's rock over there, and the general contractor has rock, a certain amount of rock removal included in this contract bid. If we run into more rock than anticipated, there's a unit cost associated with it that could eat away at some of that contingency. If there's less, and we're free and clear, we can keep going without encumbering additional costs. That will determine how much and when we free up those monies. Okay? Same kind of thing with incidentals. Let me use just one example. Ms. Moran, I have already talked. If you're building new classrooms, which we are, you need to put furniture in. Okay, furnitures are considered an incidental expense. She has an idea of how to possibly fund the furniture expenditures outside of the incidentals built into the project. That would free up some money in the incidental budget. So I just give a couple of examples to let you know where we're thinking and where we're going to come back with recommendations to act on. So how we can leverage it to get the most bang for the buck, quite honestly. It's expending what the voters authorized, but we might refine how the funding source behind the scenes is affecting some of those things. It's all above board. It's something we do every time, every project. We start taking a fresh look at where the chips fell and where we can move the monies around within that world to achieve the goals. The number one thing to achieve in the project is gain space. That's where the building addition comes in. There's some other things that we can take a look at that would be nice to have, they're not critical maybe in the design work that we could take a look at possibly reducing. It's a reference that we call value engineering. Maybe we take credit for this and don't perform that at this time to give out for a future project. So we're going to come back to you with those thoughts. Now, this is not a giant project. We're going to have a lot of those considerations. They're fairly limited, but we know that where our priorities. There's a little cheat sheet list of things that we've been keeping track of along the way to say, hey, once we're into the project, if we can afford it, maybe we can take a look at doing this. So we're going to come back to it as those things unfold. Right now, the charge is to award these contracts, anticipate these going forth, and get things moving forward. So I know I just unpackaged a lot. Does anybody have any questions specific to the process? Because the next steps are awarding the contracts and then getting contractors engaged.
You said the 5.7 million was with the doors and hardware, but not the windows?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. 5.789,600.
Does it always go to the lowest bidder or?
Lowest responsible bidder, yes. Now, there's nobody here that turned in a bid that at face value is not responsible. Everybody who turned in a bid here would be eligible for the order contract. There's, like I said, most of these folks are routine people that fit in our public school work in the capital area. I'm just taking a quick second look here. And there's only one person on these 4 pages that I haven't worked with, or one entity rather. So confidence is high that we have a good bunch amongst us. Both, from your architect and engineering group and your construction management group, we're going to steer the ship and make sure that we get the project right for you. And it's nice to have had experience with these folks. So that we're not coming in from out of state, or they're not coming in from out of state, and we're on Newton Park. That's why I call it small day. Everybody kind of knows each other all the time, right? So I'm here for any questions, if you have any. I want to leave you with those things to think about, to understand where we are in the big picture, and feel good about it. We're going to come back with recommendations for you to act on.
Were there any, I assume this was part of they wouldn't submit a bid if they weren't able to meet the timelines, but I'm assuming everyone on this list is fine, working in the time frame we want them to work in.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody would say they can't, number one, but we do have the timeline detailed, and it was in the bid documents. The idea is in very high reference. The building addition is intended to be occupied for next September. We have every reason to believe we could finish it probably by the end of next school year, not working on it on summer, during the summer months, working on the classroom building. So, confidence is high, looking out of what we have.
Right, right, obviously.
The biggest unknown in this entire project is getting out of the ground.
Hopefully it's better, hopefully it's better than my yard. My yard is like pretty rocky once you get a couple feet down, so fingers crossed it's a little bit better out here.
It's been a great building to work on. I mean, we had the same thing when we built that addition, because if you go into the crawl space under that end of the building, you could literally see it. So and then we had the geotechnical engineers in here very early on to do additional borings, so we know where the rock is to begin with. And then we designed around that. That's that's the best crystal ball we can get right there. Okay.
Does anyone else have any other questions? All
All right, now.
right, thanks, appreciate you
Welcome.
taking care of the
Thank
things for us
you.
and explaining them to us. And
Sure.
Thank you, Scott.
Is there any questions about the legislation? No, I'll respond to them.
Great, thank you.
Good night, thank you.
Good night. So next up, I have some information for you around the strategic plan and just some conversation as we look at updates and plans for the other senior. So after our last board retreat, Jody and Adrian went back, they took our feedback and, tried to make the plan, I would say, flow a little bit better. That seemed to be the biggest feedback that I got was our last plan was very linear. You could see here was the goal, here were the action items, and it was very, very specific. In designing the strategic plan, they pulled back so we weren't maybe locked into some of the items that we were trying to address previously. But in doing so, I think they almost went a little bit too far. It was hard to see a flow. So they went back and adjusted the plan. What I did for you tonight is that I took what they gave me and I put it into more of a visual format so we can look at goal by goal, and I'll be looking for some feedback and see if this is more in line with what the board is looking for. What I will share with you is that as I'm doing my updates for you, in the last plan, my updates for you were essentially, I kind of copied and pasted out of the strategic plan, right? Like, do a book study for grading for equity. We did our book study for grading for equity, right? This plan, and we're starting to go through this process right now this summer, will require, I think, some more work on our end to do the planning that we need to achieve the goals from year to year. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because I think that gives us the ability to flex and move a little bit based more on where we are as a building. So the first piece that I have for you is the mission and the vision that came out of meeting with all the stakeholder groups. This is what they had brought before you, and this was the recommendation based on conversations with you, teachers, students, staff, where they had landed, and this was what they were hearing. So the two pieces, the mission and the vision, since we last did our mission, what I will share with you is that the thinking around mission has changed. When we originally decided it back in like around 2002, it was lengthy, it was more like a paragraph. The thinking has shifted that it needs to be more concise so that people actually know the mission of the organization that they are attending or working for, and not have to refer back to our website every time to look at all the pieces and parts. So that's part of what that one was. And then the vision, was, very similar to what we had previously that was designed during a building project. Based on what they heard, they made it a little bit more generic, maybe not as linked to a building project, and we're adding the addition out back, but that is where we ended up. So for the vision, I know when we last talked too, the language of school of choice was, I think, that come up in conversation. But that's kind of where we were going. We want people to move to Manans because our school is that good, right? Like, we want people to be here. Thoughts on vision and mission as we look ahead to the strategic plan.
Yeah, I like them.
All right. So the first thing that I want to do is I put all 5 goals on the first page. We are moving from 4 to 5 goals with the idea of these family and community partnerships rising out and being pulled out. Initially in our last plan and when we first started, they were embedded into each of the different components. However, and I'll say particularly in the board retreat and particularly through our tangible developments conversations, because we pulled that data into, family and community partnerships kept coming up in ways to strengthen them around communication, being in the building, all of those types of things. So ultimately, the recommendation was to pull that one out and have it be its own standalone goal so that we give it the time and the attention that our community and you are saying it needs. So that was one of the bigger changes. And then the final goal went a little bit beyond funding. We talked about, okay, we've done our first 5 years, right? So the budgetary and the funding part is very important. But the second piece was, how do we sustain what we have built, right? Like, how do we keep moving forward but not lose what we've changed over the last 5 years? So that one remained, but I think it broadened a little bit. And then, I mean, the 3 top pillars, the board has been very consistent that academic excellence, social emotional well-being, and culture, belonging, and inclusivity are of your top priorities, and they will live and continue to live there. So the first is around academic excellence and future-ready learning. There are 5 components to this goal. We're continuing to look at accelerating growth and achievement. We still have gaps. We need to look at the gaps across subgroups, pay attention to subgroups, but keep it moving and keep going in that direction. First year of graduate is in, I would still say it's initial stages through the state education department. But one of the things that came up was, we don't have a high school, but what does it mean to leave Manans school? What's the portion of our graduate, our 8th grade graduates? What is important to us that they leave us with so that they go on and be high school success? And then a collaborative curriculum, we need to keep working. We've adopted math, we've adopted ELA, our teachers are still learning and growing in those areas. We've got to keep looking at different curriculums. Mr. Gossip has done a ton of work in art. Health and PE has really shaped. Instead of going from like a soccer unit to a volleyball unit to, the different sports that you play, it's much more around health and wellness and physical activity. So it's broadened so it includes more kids. So we've done a lot of work in your curriculum, but we need to keep moving forward. This came up quite a bit with strengthening our pre-K-12 coherence. How do our kids do when they go to high school? How do our groups, how does it go from pre-K to 2? How do those kids transition to 3 through 5? How do those kids transition to 6 through 8? When you see some of our dips in our data, it's in the transition years. We have to look at that. We have to figure out what's going on there and how do we make those jumps. In ELA, for instance, from 2nd grade to 3rd grade, we go from learning how to read words to understanding text, right? When you make that jump, how do we support kids in that? When our kids go from 5th grade to 6th grade, the content isn't such a big jump like it is in reading, but there's a whole different level of independence and managing, a schedule and different teachers and not having the comfort of being with one teacher all year. And the teachers lose the ability of like, I didn't get through my ELA lesson. I'll take a little bit of time this afternoon to keep going, right? They don't have that flexibility in middle school anymore. So really just looking at how do we manage those transitions with student achievement in mind, and then how do we better align with our high schools? We are seeing some outstanding areas of success for our kids as they go to high school, and we're seeing some places that we need to do better. You know, we've requested that we have reached out, particularly towards colleagues, as with both of our kids go. We've asked for their report cards. We want to see how are our kids doing when they move on to high school. Where are they excelling? Where are they struggling? Do they rebound after a couple of years? Because if they rebound after a couple of years, that's a big message to us that we need to figure that out, right? Kids are going to have a period of adjustment, but we need to look at those areas. Expanding choice and acceleration. We want as many kids as possible sitting in accelerated classes. And that isn't, you know, something selfish that we want to tell, you know, we want our kids accelerated and moving along because it opens up electives in high school. And it's just that simple. We want to open doors for kids. We want to give them a chance to take accelerated courses when they can, where they're going to be successful. So when they go to high school, they have more choices. And then explore enrichment in art, music, and special areas. We have more special areas and more time in special areas than most school districts, and it is a point of pride. Most schools that you go to, they sit 30 minutes a week in music. Our kids get 80 minutes in a 6-day cycle. So when we have this time, what are we going to do to enrich them and open opportunities and new ideas and help kids grow and become different kinds of learners, right? I would love to say that all of our kids come to school to go to ELA class. If you ask our kids, most kids come for recess, PE, art, music, library. Those are the places where they hone their interests, right? So we'll look at those areas as well and see where can we leverage and grab onto more kids. Technology will continue to be an area of conversation. We need to look at the use of AI. We need to do so in a responsible manner, teach kids how to use it. It was one of our STEM topics for our 6th graders this year. We need to implement our instructional technology plan. We have one. We will continue to implement it. AI is leveraged into it. We have a committee that looks at our tech plans. And then a piece that has ebbed and flowed and is one of the tricky parts about media is because it's based on people, right? Who sits in the library media specialist seat? Sometimes we get traditional librarians. Sometimes we get more library media specialists. We have to make sure that we're embedding online safety and digital citizenship. There's no way that we do it. We need to do it systemically. And that's what that one's all about. And then connecting our learning to our life. We heard this a lot from kids. We heard a lot from them about real world experiences, hearing from different people in the community. Like, how does this connect? They don't see beyond today, right? They need to see beyond today and what they're doing in our classrooms. And then the last piece is the financial literacy piece. That is a new requirement from state ed. We have typically addressed that in home careers, a lot of our credit cards and debt and, you know, loans and things like that and budgeting, but that needs to become more K-8 instead of a one-stop kind of shopping. So the last piece that I have for you is this is how we will know. What are going to be our measures and what can you expect to hear from me? You should expect to hear from me about academic achievement changes. Proficiency, math, and ELA are 2 places that we look. We should also be looking at NWEA. We're going to do a lot of work around assessments in the coming years. That is our next step, I would say, instructionally. So we'll have more data in that. Access and opportunity. Who's sitting in what classes, right? Like that's, if they can't get a seat in that class, then they can't possibly benefit from that class and open up possibilities. Our student experience will be something that we continue to listen to. Student voice was something that continued to come through. And then future readiness. What's happening within us? What's happening in those transition years? What's happening as they go back to school? Any questions, thoughts, gaps based on our conversations that you're hearing as we look at our academic excellence? As I shared with you, the first one under here is aligned standards-based assessments. That is our next step from a curricular standpoint. That's what we need to look at. If we design strong assessments, what follows a strong assessment is going to be really good instruction. In education, you plan with the end in mind, just like many other things. What are kids working for? What are we going to assess them for? Once you know what the target is, then you can start to look at your instruction backwards instead of kind of teaching through a chapter, and then there's this test at the end. You really should be looking at that in reverse, and that takes time, that takes growth, it takes development, and it's challenging work. So we will be looking at and we're scoping that over the next couple of years. Student experience, engagement, well-being. These pieces, we're looking at expanding clubs and athletics. It always makes me nervous when we explore extracurricular partnerships with neighboring districts. It's really hard to accomplish and it's really hard to do, and it comes up every turn. So I don't, hard or not, I think we probably have a responsibility to look at it again and weigh the pros and cons, see what has changed, see what has not changed. But a lot of times, joining extracurricular athletics in the neighboring districts in 7th and 8th grade for modified sports starts to solidify your high school choice. Maybe before families are ready to do so, without having to sit here. So I just say that it is complex. Doesn't mean we shouldn't look at it, but it is here again. And we intentionally went with the word explore, because I don't know that we can make that promise, but we have the ability to explore it, look at, see what are the advantages and what are the hurdles. Increased student voice. One of the, I would say, the greatest benefits of our work with Tangible were the student-led groups. They want time to talk to us. They do. They want time to talk to us. They want time for us to sit and listen and hear what they have to say in a structured way. So looking to increase student voice is going to be something that we're going to continue to look at. And then we have done a really nice job, I believe, in restorative practice work here. We need to refine, we need to keep moving forward, and we need to keep training, and we need to keep working. It's not something that happens overnight. It's a culture shift. We're on the path, but we need to kind of keep our foot on the gas in that area. Again, number 4 is something that continues to come up. It's improving outdoor spaces. They love the little guy playground in the back. All we hear from the kids is like, do not go back there. So any opportunity that we can to start looking at that and come up with some creative ways to look at that. Continue to deepen responsive classroom. We are in a really good place in implementation. There are next steps and different practices that we can push forward with. So we'll continue to work on there. This upcoming year, we're going to really look a lot at teacher language. It's just it's a hard practice. Our language is very natural to us. Trying to shift that is tough. So we're going to keep taking it. We're going to keep taking a look at that, and then strengthening our at-scale counseling. We got some feedback around spaces. We got some feedback around the screener data. How do we use it? How do we get kids in front of us? So we'll continue to look at that. And again, how do you know? I will report out to you about attendance. When kids are in a good spot, they're here. When they feel connected, they're here. So we'll continue to look at that. Behavior, we should see behavior referrals continue to decrease. We should have higher percentages of belonging, students reporting that they feel they belong. Are they in extracurriculars? It's really important to know. What percentage of our kids participate in extracurriculars? If they're leaving at 3 o'clock and they're not staying, that's a good indication that they're getting out the door as fast as they can, right? So looking at that kind of data, so that goes along with the participation, and then we will continue to look at our student supports. This is Jennifer, as we speak this summer, is reviewing and updating our counseling plan. That is something that has gone on the back burner for a while, and it was something that needs to come back to the forefront. We do it, we're doing all the pieces, but we need to update it. It needs to reflect where our current practices are, and then also meet with local districts and see where we need to move forward. Everything that is here under culture or in district practices has come directly from our local community. The consulting that we did with them and all the information that they collected, that is where this work is coming from. And LB, who has been our primary lead at Tangible, did review this part of the strategic plan and gave some feedback as well. So in these areas, examining systems through an equity lens, we talked a lot about that. Strengthening our culturally responsive practices, we'll continue to push there. Recruiting and retaining. We want to make sure that we are recruiting and retaining all kinds of different people, right? Like that's what we need, that's what we want. So that becomes a priority, continues to be a priority. Mentor our belonging and climate, and then make sustainable commitments. What can we do? There's nothing worse than committing to doing something and then pulling back, right? That does not send the message that we want to send. And again, I'll report out to you around belonging and climate, engagement, employee voice, inclusive practices, and then collaboration. Our family and community partnerships. I would characterize our family and community partnerships as more one directional than two directional. We push a lot of information out. We have started to ask for more information, right, in return, but really we want to get to a point where it's two-way, right, where people don't feel like they're just receiving information from us, they feel like they're part of the conversation. And that really is what I would say the goal is here. We want to look at activities for gaps. We want to expand our community outreach. We want to create a widespread group. If people want to talk to us, we need to hear them, right? We want to include their voices. Part of that will happen through our DEI committee as well. And then strengthen our identity in our storytelling. So we have to make a commitment to use our communication channels in the way that they should be used to develop a story about our school, right? Like that is, there's a marketing piece to schools. There is. There's a piece of getting what we're doing out there. We talk about here about what we're doing, right? And this is our audience, right? How do we push that out so people know the great things that we're doing here in our school? So one of the things that I'm doing this year, I have a welcome back letter that goes in our back to school packet that comes home to you. That letter historically coming from my office and offices before me has been very procedural in nature. Here's all it is, here's all the forms you're gonna fill out. Fill out this one, that's what this one is. It goes through, right? It's very, and that's my welcome to finance, you know, here we are, that's my welcome letter. We've shifted that this year. Kathleen has done a nice job of taking a lot of that procedural stuff, putting it into a graphic format, attaching and putting things in different categories. And then my letter becomes more about setting the tone. So really kind of looking at some of these communication pieces, just something as simple as that, and shifting it so that we are starting to develop who we are, get people excited, welcome new families, and just start to move in that direction. Again, I'll report out around participation in our activities and our events. We get high levels of participation. It will be interesting to see, is it always the same people, right? And the question is always going to be, not when we have high levels, who's not coming? And that's what we need to look for. Family survey results on communication and connection. Our digital engagement, we get a lot of analytics now, particularly through ParentSquare. We have a lot of information that comes through. We're always looking for partnerships, and you never know when they're going to appear. We just had Global Foundries here doing the STEM camp, and I was talking to a woman, and she was like, hey, by the way, we will fund robotics clubs and robotics teams. And she gave me her card. She's like, give me a call. Let me know if you have somebody who's interested in doing it. Like, we'll fund a robotics team. We'll get you the equipment, you know, and we can help you through that process. So you just don't know where you're going to find the community partnerships. We need to keep looking and seeking out those different partnerships, and then continue to look at our identity. What's the perception from our community, and what is the feedback to us? And then our last one is around effectiveness and sustainability. Are we aligned for our budget priorities? I do think the board does a nice job of making sure that we have the funds to continue to move our strategic plan along. We need to develop some staff leadership. And the reason I say that, not like, are we putting people in the pipeline for like principals, but can we continue to build leaders amongst our staff so that they can keep these initiatives going and that they can keep the culture of our building going. Whether I'm standing here, a new superintendent, a new principal, it doesn't matter who is standing here. If you can get staff leaders in the building, you can continue, and it just becomes part of who you are. We've done that with Responsive Classroom. We sent 5 teachers last year to the advanced responsive classroom training, and they became model classrooms. New teachers went to go visit those rooms. They went to go check, you know, if they were struggling in an area, they went to go see those classrooms. And, you know, Stephanie Stanton, Karen Steve, Jamie Kepler, Rachel McQuaid, and Chelsea Passero. So we had somebody who run the whole gamut from K-5, and they became classrooms that people could go visit. They became people that people could go have a conversation with and strengthen their practices. So we need to keep leveraging pieces like that. And then monitor and report consistently. I report out at board meetings. We need to report out in other places. Again, when we do our report out in board meetings, it's here. We want the community to have a better understanding of what we're doing in a way that is accessible. So we have to find ways to integrate that and go from there. So that's a lot, but and some of our 5 goals have made it hopefully flow a little bit better for the board. This is not what the strategic plan is going to look like when it comes out in print. I just took information and tried to make it it's still very much in a listy format. All of this information is still listed under bullets in the strategic plan. I tried to just take it and make it a little bit more tenable, and quite honestly, when we put this on the website too, right, a little bit more, digestible for anybody from the public who looks at it as well. Thoughts, comments?
This looks very nice. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, no, I think it reads very well. It's very clear, concise. It aligns with everything we're trying to do. The one question I do have, is when we referenced and you mentioned it before, the portrait of a graduate. Do we have, are we gonna have a place where we can reference what that is, the outline of that? So anybody who reads this for the first time can say, what is that and get a clear understanding?
Absolutely. So one of the things that they've asked us, they want to put this together. There's an image that the state education department uses for portrait of a graduate. It's a tree, and it kind of, and it has like the pieces and parts of a portrait of a graduate and the roots. That image will be inserted into the plan when we do the printed copy. So when they talk about portrait of a graduate, there will be kind of a cutout and bump out. So that'll be there. And then I can also ask them to link it or have Trish link it on the website, make it a hyperlink. So if you look at it, that you can link and learn more information about what it is.
Perfect, thank you.
Because most people don't really.
Yeah,
They won't know what we're referencing unless we're clear about.
Yep.
What that's.
I like this format a lot. It's easier, like you said, easier to digest on the list. The bullets felt very much like, here's a lot of things we want to do, but does it necessarily add up to the top? Like if we did all of these bullet points, that would be fantastic, but I'm not sure that that's all we would need to do or that would necessarily add up to the goal that we have. And then maybe that's still true. And, we talked about it's a 5-year plan, right? So at the end of every year, we're still gonna have to look at it and say, okay, what did we miss or what did we do or what's cropped? What do we put on here that maybe isn't on the top of the list anymore and having to revisit that. And this to me kind of makes it easier to see what's the highest level goals and then the things underneath that can change and ebb and flow, and that's helpful. One thing I do remember reading in the list that I didn't see on here was about helping students, especially in the middle school years, be able to have responsibility for their own grades and things like that. I thought I remembered seeing that in somewhere that was not under academic excellence and thinking it should be under academic excellence, and that was the only thing, and then I didn't see it in here at all. So that was just one thing that I would add to the academic excellence, only from my personal experience, especially having a middle schooler that we started doing this, the grading for equity. They have the ability to redo their grades, right? But they're only going to do that if they're someone who's extremely self-motivated or they have a parent who's very interested in making sure that their grade is as good as it can be. So I think working with the students to make sure that they're actually the ones that are invested in checking their grades, what needs to be, what's missing, what could be redone, those kinds of things. So kind of working with those on those independent skills as they transition from grade school to middle school to eventually high school, to me is something that I think should be part of the academic excellence and future ready learning part that I didn't see in here, but other than that.
Thank you. So, and I was going to stay tuned for my next update, which will be at the next meeting. It's one of the things that we are, and Trish has been incredible because she builds the schedule behind the scenes, and I think she's probably like, Jen, could we just have the same bill schedule for 1 year, 2 years in a row? Because surprise, she came back from vacation, she's like, what's class time? 30 minutes will enough, about 30 minutes at the beginning of the day, for kids to have access to teachers and teachers to have access with kids. Homeroom is kind of a lost spat at time.
Mm-hmm.
It's not super purposeful. The biggest takeaway in homeroom is attendance and lunch count. We can accomplish that with Google Form when they get here. So kind of recapturing that time and doing some of those types of things. So we're working with teachers on that, so stay tuned. And part of that will be around, kids can self-select to go see Mr. Herman or Mr. Schweitzer, but also Mr. Schweitzer can say, I need to see Patrick, or, I need to see Penny because I want to go over X, Y, or Z. You know what I mean? So it'll be, the teacher can request them, but they'll also have the ability to advocate for themselves a little bit. And, I think it'll be a little bit of like a soft landing into the day, right? It's low pressure. It's not like, walking into science class. And I think it could potentially shape some time, because I will tell you, most kids are unwilling to give up their lunchtime. Right. So, and lunch is important, right? There's a social aspect to that. There's a whole piece of that. There's a whole piece for teachers, right? After they talk 3 or 4 periods in a row, to have 30 minutes of like decompressing time before they go into their afternoon. So we're just trying to think creatively around how to capture some time to do some of that.
Yeah, and not everyone's gonna do it at home either, especially if it's a kid that knows, I've got 6 bag grades sitting in there, I don't wanna open it, right? And like, I'm not gonna talk to mom or dad about that. And some of those skills it's building the habit of checking regularly, talking to teachers about it, and it doesn't come naturally or easily for probably most kids, because they don't have to do it in kindergarten, first grade, second grade. So building those habits and skills is something that they're going to need a little bit of hand holding with, especially in the early days, and hopefully if we can build up their willingness to do it on their own by the time they get to 8th grade, because in high school nobody's going to hold their hand anymore, right? When they get to freshman year, if we haven't built those skills by 9th grade, that's it. So yeah, I'd say not just giving them the time, but making like intentionally building into teaching them those skills, the checking and the independence.
Absolutely.
Any other questions, comments?
So I would just encourage you to take a look at this, when you have a little bit of quiet time alongside the other document. I did try to pull up the high level, I didn't put everything from that document necessarily in here. I was trying to get to the heart of it. But then I will give them the green light to start doing some design work. Maybe not finalize it, but start, if we feel good about the buckets and some of the sub buckets, I'll say, then I will give them the green light to, keep moving forward, and get into the design work so that we can continue to push forward and, ready to get right back into it this fall. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. The third item that you have on here is preliminary fund balance. So it's,
So I could move the packet and, Joanne just put together kind of the beginning of where we are, give you some things to think about before we come back to the formal reserve.
And this is you don't feel the need to stand up, right? Can you all hear me okay?
Yep, yeah, you're good.
Yeah, that kind of voice goes right through most people. The year-end fund balance, and these are, while they've been audited or others have been here, they are not finalized yet. I do not anticipate any great change in the data that you're gonna see right now, okay? Go ahead and give me my next slide. Again, simply put, now this is not our reserve plan, right? We do all the reserves. And when you get that, it'll be in September, October, you'll get it 1 month and we'll approve it the next. And you'll get all the reserves that the district has, the activities for the year that reserve has had, what are the rules about it? How do you establish it? How do you spend it? That kind of stuff. This is an overview for where we are at the end of this school year. The approvals the board's already given to fund reserves up to a certain level. We're going to have a quick conversation, a conversation on that, not necessarily quick, to talk about where we are, what I'm recommending and why. And we're going to go through that right now. I want to go back to that slide one more time. I'm so sorry. Again, fund balance is exactly what we talk about every year. You start where you end as the previous year, whatever that number is. We add all of the revenues to that number. This is just the general fund. And then we subtract all the expenditures. What is left is your fund balance. If you spend more money than you take in, your fund balance is going to go down. If our revenues are higher than our expenditures, that has a positive impact on our fund balance. We budget conservatively in most cases. We had a couple of years with the Riverside Consortium, which allowed us to budget conservatively. We don't know if it will stay for the year. There are some unknowns there. But again, that's it. That's as easy as it is. We just confused it and made it crazy because we put all the restrictions in there. In June, the board approved the following. You approved to increase the ERS reserve or the employee retired reserve, that is for the non-instructional group. And that increase was not to exceed 75. Same with the teacher's retirement reserve increase, not to exceed 75,000. You might remember this from last year. The teacher's retirement reserve has a calculation in it. You can't exceed a certain amount. You can never have more than 10% of the previous year's salaries in that, and we don't. But I'm not making a recommendation to increase it any further this year. The other one we did was the board, thank you, approved to increase the repair reserve, not to exceed 500,000. I put that amount a little higher just because I didn't know where fund balance was going to end up. And I think it's important that we put money back in that repair reserve because we spent a little bit out of it. And the last one was the tax tertiary reserve. There will be a spelling test on that work at the end of the and that is to cover any of the monies that we now get notified of the assessment challenges. Generally, it's not that big of a deal. We keep a small, I think it was 114 prior to the school district being informed that the Riverside holdings are arguing or they're really pushing, they're challenging their assessment, which could result in a little bit more money exposure for us, liability there. So we're going to talk about that a little bit as well. We made that not to exceed $150,000. Okay. Now, I have to stand up and I apologize, but I'm going to go over, again, I should only give you 1 year's worth of data, but I always give 5 to 6 years of fund balance data. And up here on this one, I put this after because I forget I gave it to you. Again, here we are projected at 6/30/26. We started with 3.7 million, which is what you end with in the previous year right here. We add in $12,937,000 and we subtract $12,425,000. That means our net increase right now is about $500,000 or for a total of $4.2 million in fund balance. Little slight increase over last year, but again, our revenues are higher than our expenditures and that's what happens. So when you come down, workers' compensation, these are all our reserves. Oh, look at that. Reserve for workers' compensation, unemployment, ERS, TRS, tax cert, reserve for employee benefits, capital reserve, reserve for repairs. You'll get that big reserve plan every year. We'll go through it in greater detail, what are the rules around each one. But if you come over to the tax tertiary, I am recommending, oops, I forget that this moves that thing. Can we get to the next page? Yes, I can. Look at that. I can't get there. I'm technologically challenged. We know it. It's not a problem. I'm going to recommend that we go to $200,000. If you'll go back one for me. That we go to $200,000 with, and I'm going to give you a little more detail on the whys in the next slide. And the other ones that I'm recommending to the board is to increase the repair reserve. That's a $300,000 increase. And tax cert, I don't think we need to any other money in anything. I think we're funded very well. Now, the only challenge that comes into play is when you come down to the unassigned, appropriated for revenues. We have our unassigned fund balance, which is what's left after everything. We appropriate a certain amount to reduce our taxes. This year previous was 900. This year we knew we were going to 1.1 million. And we did that, if you remember correctly, because we said we were going to increase our appropriated fund balance by $200,000 to offset that debt service payment that we have for the band. We anticipated it, we had to pay for it, and we know it's there. We also know with that reserve, we can reduce that next year. So we don't always have to keep our appropriated fund balance so high. It's nice to keep it a little lower. We're going to bring that right back down to 900. Now, don't panic. That extra 141,000 is that reserve for encumbrances. It's a crazy number, but if you think about our school year, at the end of the year, we pay all the bills we know we have bills for, pay it all, and then we might have some purchase orders that we've never got the good or the service and we have not paid for it yet. They become carry forward encumbrances. We bring them money and all, into the new year. And they make us put it, the accountants, governmental standards board, they make us put it here because you really can't spend it. I'd like to take that number out because where you see 5.13% in unassigned fund balance, that's what's left after everything. If I remove the encumbrances out of that calculation, it's 6.13. So I don't want anybody to be nervous. We're a little lower. We went, obviously, look how well we have, this board has done a great job. You started at 9.88 unassigned fund balance. That's more than double what we're supposed to have. And we've nice and steadily and brought it back to where we feel we're comfortable. All the business superintendents, we argue every year during budget season that limit has to come up. It doesn't provide a district like Manans with enough of a savings account if we can only have 4%. What I show you down here, and it's always, your 4% is based on what your next year's budget is. So we know our budget is 13.9. I know that 4% of that is $559,000. I give that to the board. Oh, I touched it again. Darn it. And that's where we are right this minute. But you can leave it right here, Trish, it's fine. So I would recommend to this Board of Education to increase your tax surcharge reserve by $85,473, which is a total of $200,000 in that reserve. That's approximately 82% of the current liability. There is generally no need to reserve up to the max. We're in a negotiating game right now with tax surcharge. We're not, but the assessment, they don't always, there's always give and take. It's a pretty solid number. In the school before where I left, we usually average around 75% of what your exposure is, because nobody, the assessor's offices don't always give what the property owners want. So I think we're safe with that. I also think that I would recommend to the Board of Education to increase the repair reserve for $300,000. That to me is one of the best ways that a school district can save money for the future. We are not doing anything that's not appropriate or wrong. It allows us to have a savings account when we have something in our house break that we didn't plan for. We've done a nice job here. We have a little extra money correcting our sidewalks and making sure they're no longer trip hazards or as much as there were. I would recommend that to put in the repairs. And then without the carryover encumbrance, I want you to know that our unassigned fund balance is at about 6%. I'm happy that it's showing up as 5.13, but really, when push comes to shove, we have about 6%, which is 2% over. I have to justify it every year. I don't want the state to think that we are not being prudent. We are. We have brought it down. But I also, in my responses that you'll see on the audit committee, is that we're not comfortable going forward. This Board of Education is not comfortable with that. So with that, any increase that we've done or I've recommended is within all of what the board had approved in June. That's great. And that's what I would recommend to the board to do. And I'll be up for discussion if anybody has any discussion or feels stronger a different way, or would like to see additional information. I have no problem.
I had a couple questions. One of them, though, was about revenue, which I think is probably easier to ask when we get to your year-end
Okay.
summary slides, so I'm gonna hold that one. The other one I have is, do you know off the top of your head what the potential exposure was for the Riverside building? Do you remember what they were asking for?
Yeah, I do. And right now, when I calculated that today, our total exposure is about $282,000. I mean, for everything that we know of right now. However, we're now getting it in for the current year. And I'm not worried about the ones that we're getting in now. They are usual homeowners where the
Right,
impact
that
of
number's a lot
we
smaller.
can cover that.
Yeah.
I will tell this board as well, also with the tax certiorari reserves. Let's say we put this money aside, it extends it another year. We know we have a whole other year of exposure if it continues. Once they've settled, that money is supposed to go back to the general fund. If you have money, and that's why I keep a spreadsheet for every assessment challenge we get. I keep a spreadsheet, the address, the original amount, what the assessment challenges are, and what's our potential exposure. And so that's what we do. And right now, the homeowners generally don't impact is too great.
Right, right.
But at this big one, if we keep putting money aside, when everything is said and done, and we paid or whoever's paying, and they're settled, the money will go back to the general. fund. And anybody, any questions, yeah.
We have not got any questions right now on that. All right, thanks, Joanne. That-
I appreciate your stuff.
Please.
Hmm?
Please, it is.
That's why I wrote this down. I was like, just in case.
All right,
Yeah. I said the freezer is on.
All right, item 4, business matters, non-action items. A, non-action items warrants. Enclosed for information of the board are copies of the following warrants and claims auditors report for June 2026. Did anybody have any questions about the June warrants? Okay, item B, non-action items appropriation status report. Any questions on this?
Nope.
All right, item C, revenue status report. Oh, see, this is the one I have a question on. We don't have it up on the screen. Can I just ask Joanne, I can find it. The basic formula, one of our, other than our tax base, the biggest funding was from the basic formula from the state aid that we get. And it was just, the revenue earned was just quite a bit lower than the budgeted revenue. I think we had budgeted 2.84 million and the revenue earned was 1.98.
Not where you are.
Sorry. That's what that was my question, but. All right, do you have the revenue slide up?
And the basic aid, you mean?
So yeah,
You
there's,
see, right, in the basic formula, the 2.8 million,
yep.
okay, that was all of the aid.
Okay, so the lines underneath it, like
Yes.
add up to make the 2.8 or whatever,
Correct.
okay.
And I can give you an overview of that aid if you'd like to know where we stand at the next meeting.
No, that's
But yes,
okay.
that's why it is like that.
Okay, yeah, that was my only question, is that still money that needed to come, or if it was already complete with the lines underneath it? Okay, that makes sense, that was my only question there. Anyone else have any questions about the revenue report?
No, but, well, I don't know. It's not a question. It's not a question. I will note account, A2230 special education tuition. It's
Yes.
up a lot over, well,
Yes.
so that's good.
Yeah, it is very good. And we will be a little more, we will work with that as we continue to go on, where we recognize more of that revenue.
Yeah.
And we found out that now we'll have 3 years under our belt where we know that it's been consistent. We can be a little more, we can use that revenue a little more to our advantage.
Yeah.
Maybe lower the appropriated fund balance in that case. It's always nice for a district to do. Thank you for noticing that. I appreciate that. And at the bottom of that sheet that you're looking at, that revenue sheet, you see that interfund transfer for debt service. If you remember correctly, 3 years ago, when we did the roof project, that was part of bringing money over to use some of that debt reserve.
Yep.
Because you have to use it to pay down the debt. You can't use it for something else.
Yep.
So when we bring that money in, we know it's for using it to help offset the cost.
All right, so that's revenue status. Item D, non-action items, budget transfers under 10,000. Any questions on that? It was a large report, that's, I'm sure, assuming that's just because it's the end of the year and trying to put things where they're supposed to be categorized.
It had the over 10,000 stuff in there too, but it doesn't matter. Had him. No, never mind. Not important.
And I'm ready to answer and listen to
Thanks, the budget, I did, yeah, notice that, so budget transfers under 10,000, there were items on here that were larger than 10,000.
It was just both reports. It's fine. It's all good.
For individual items. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's later on.
Oh, all right. And keep in mind, when there's budget transfers at the end of the year, sometimes we move money, during the course of the year for pay, like when we do our payroll encumbrance, people move during the year, so sometimes I might move them too soon. And then, we do the payroll encumbrance, and then at the end of the year, we'll go back. We try to keep track of those all year long. But if there are any big movements that we're gonna do at the end of the year to purchase something or to buy, we make those transfers then and we're done. So some of them are, and they settle up the accounts.
Right, so I said it seemed like there was more action this month, but I'm sure it's just because it's end of the year.
Yes, correct.
All right, any other questions on that item D? All right, business matters, action items. Item A, tax rate for, it's actually 26, 27, right?
It is the 26, 27 tax year you're doing for the tax bills that go out this September.
The updated PDF in there.
Yeah, okay, so we'll just, when we do the minutes, just also update it in the title and the agenda. Okay, could I get a resolution, please?
Whereas the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District has been authorized by the voters at the annual $13,997,420. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education fix the equalized tax rates as they appear below.
Second.
Were there any questions on this? This was just, we passed, when we vote on our budget, we vote on the amount of money that we want to raise, and then the assessments get done after that. The actual tax rate is based on the amount of money we voted on, and then with the assessments factored in, so the increase is not necessarily the same as what we estimated it was going to be. In this case, it's lower than what we had, the rate is lower than what we had projected the increase for our tax
It's
rate.
much lower, yes.
That's, yeah, quite a bit lower. Are there any questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, action items, treasurer's report. Could I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District approve the treasurer's report for June 2026.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item C, budget transfers over $10,000. Could I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the authorization of the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District approve the enclosed budget transfer over $10,000.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item D, contracts for approval. Could I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District hereby approves the following contracts for the 26-27 school year.
Second.
Are there any questions about any of those contracts? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item E, disposals. Could I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District accept the disposals as listed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item F, annual acknowledgement of salary agreements. Could I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District approve the 2026-2027 annual acknowledgement of salary agreements for non-instructional and administrative staff.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 6, Board of Education action items. A, pre-K plan approval. Could I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District adopt the 2026-2027 pre-kindergarten program plan as attached.
Second.
Any questions about that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, district-wide safety plan approval. Could I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District adopt the 26-27 district-wide safety plan as attached.
Second?
And I'd like to note that when we're voting on this, it's going to be as amended with the two very small changes that we talked about, which was the spelling of Ms. Forbio's name and, where it noted that we were pre-K to 8 and not a K to 8. So that's what we're voting on. Any other questions about the safety plan before we approve it? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 7, personnel matters. Item A, letter of resignation. Could I get a resolution, please? I think that's your turn.
This one up top, sorry. Yeah, no. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District accepts the letter of resignation from Michael Santiago effective close of business on July 31st, 2026.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I want to thank Michael for his work in the district and wish him luck in his future endeavors. Want to say about people?
No, we've appreciated Michael's commitment to the district over the last couple of years. He was one of our evening cleaners and he has moved on to a different position and we will continue to recruit, but we appreciate his time and service.
Item B, personnel agenda. Could I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District approves the personnel agenda items listed, or items as listed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item C, mentors. This is our staff mentors. Could I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District approve the following mentors for the 2026-2027 school year for the MAT contract as listed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Superintendent program recommendations, A, CSE, CPSE recommendations. Could I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Manans Union Free School District hereby approves the CSE, CPSE recommendations as submitted.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Administrative updates, superintendent's comments.
I would just ask board members, if you would like to attend NISBA this fall, that you please reach out to Trish and Tammy, and they will get you registered and hotels secured. I encourage you to take a look at NISBA's website if you'd like to, understand some of the sessions and the focus of the conference. It tends to be a great couple of days. You get to meet people from across the state, just further your education a little bit from the lens of a board member. And I would say the last couple of years that we've gone has certainly been worth the time. The time commitment, if you're able to do that. It does require an overnight stay. Summer learning, and I am going to do Kathleen's presentation for this night, for this evening. Summer learning is off and running, and actually it's hard to believe it wraps up this week. We have had our extended school year students for our exceptional learners here for the last 6 weeks. They just went on a field trip today to the aquarium. A big component of ESY is getting our kids out into the community. We had Tiger Learning Lab kids here, K or pre-K through grade 4 this year. The focus is on reading and writing and math and some research. The teachers work really hard to not make it school 2.0. So some of the pictures you'll see, they're outside and they're doing different kinds of research. And then we had a returning STEM opportunity and then 2 new STEM opportunities. So our returning STEM opportunity is the partnership that we have with Water Elite through Capital Region BOCES. Regeneron used to fund that STEM camp. However, we went a year without, and Global Foundries picked it up this year. So we had that back here in the library. It was a great week. The kids get to work with kids from other districts. They do quite a bit of work, and their focus is on building tenacity. Working through, pushing through, persevering, and they build solar panels. They build electric cars that they race. They were building open and closed circuits. It really was a nice week. And then at the end of the week, they come and they show us our work, and then they go have their final race, and it counts the laps for them. And, one poor car slowly putted out. The team was like, it's worked all week, but it's part of the deal. Some drivers are better than others. Patrick, you might want to be careful. I'm pretty sure that ankles at one point.
Yeah.
But they have a great time. So it's a lot of fun. And then we brought two of our own STEM opportunities. Getting fit, incoming 6th and 7th graders here over the summer is no easy feat. There's a few of them outside tonight. They're happy to be out there, but to come in the building is no easy feat. So we tried something different. Michelle Irvin has a natural affinity and a natural love of teaching STEM. So she was the right person to do it. And we got two of our own kids to do two-week versions of a STEM camp for the kids. So, I don't know that they were completely convinced that we were going to do something a little different this year, but the kids who came every day. And they were here and they were engaged and they had a lot of fun. So I'm hoping next year we can serve about 12 kids each week. I think we hovered around, I think we had 12 sign up. By the time the weekend, we had probably 8 or 9 that were attending regularly. So hopefully some word will get out and it'll be fun. But there were 2 great kits. One was around acceleration velocity. It was building a version of the cars that they were building in 8th grade with a different spin on it. But as they go into 6th grade, that is one of the science units that they do. So it built some nice foundational knowledge. And then the 6th going to 7th grade, they did some work, but they did it through an AI lens, and they were using AI to develop some logos and things of that nature. And the conversation was really about checking your work, right? Like, what is it spitting out? Is that what it should be? Is it accurate? Is it true? So it was, it was infused. So it was a nice twist on what the kids were doing. So it was a really good summer for learning. Up next week, kindergarten warm up. We're not done yet. So they will be in next week for us. And then last but not least, just a reminder that we do have a second board meeting this month. We'll be back here Monday night, August 24th. I do anticipate that it'll be a shorter board meeting, but we usually have some personnel items for that.
Yeah, I might not be here. I'm traveling to India.
Absolutely.
Item B, business managers' comments.
Okay, the audit is pretty much complete. It's not, I have follow-up stuff that I'm working on right now. They're really busy, so I don't know how they're going to do all their work done. But we have tentatively, she cannot be, well, let me just give you a little backup. So this is an audit, same Weston company, which is great. They're definitely competitive as far as their pricing structure goes. And I got a new audit this year, so I hope everybody's happy. It's been okay. It's always kind of crazy when you have somebody that's used to the way you do your work and then somebody else comes in, you almost feel like, oh my God, I'm just a jerky house, but it actually went very well. She was pleased. It was nice to have somebody different do it. She asked for different things that Amy didn't ask for, so it was pretty good. It was nice for Sarah. I gotta tell you, Sarah's doing very well. It's a curse and a blessing in the same breath to teach somebody at the same time, but let me tell you, she's great. She comes to us with all the knowledge of schools, especially the NANS, how they work. She sometimes doesn't think she'll ever get it, but she has really done well. So we're good with the audit. That's underway. The follow-up will hopefully be done this week. The three things that we don't have yet. I'll finish the compensated absences, which will be done this week. We have to do our fixed assets. They'll be giving us that probably the end of this week, early next week. And then the gas fee, 68 from ERS, that doesn't get released to us until sometime in August. So we're waiting for it. It's late August for that. We'll be working with the folks. We had worked with somebody that we know from Envision that the board has approved as a consultant during the year. Her name is Jenny Marzio. We have made great strides to clean up some of the things that we needed to. We had too many earnings codes, which is a little grief to the people at the table. We have a lot of cleaning to do. We've done all of them. So our next thing to do is get ready to pay everybody else that comes back to work. It'll be a couple of more payroll, and then we're going to hit the ground running. We have a lot going on, but it's going very well. Facilities wise, you're going to see out here, Jen and I have worked really hard. The crew has been great this year. They're probably tired of seeing Jen and I all the time, but we all worked hard. They worked so hard. We needed to know what the status was of all the floors because we didn't know which ones had been stripped and which ones hadn't been stripped. So I can tell you with great certainty that every floor in this building will have been chemically stripped and 5 coats of wax applied. Maybe one office will get done during the winter break, but still. The guys have really gone out of their way. We had a company come in and assisted too, so we knew that we had a great starting point for every summer's schedule going forward. It should help us reduce the amount of time, schedule what floors need to be just above, and what floors need to be redone from the get-go. So they work very hard on it, so that's been a lot to do. The people that you approved tonight, I'm very comfortable saying that I think this school's gonna be the cleanest it's been, and clean. We have a couple of cleaners that we got this year that are cleaning walls like no other, which means that we don't paint them. All we had to do was watch them. It's been amazing. So we're gonna have a couple of the aides that end their program at the end of this week come back, and we're gonna tag team all of them. I think the windows are due, so I'm gonna assign 2 people to do those. One's gonna be on the inside, one's gonna be on the outside, and we'll find out what we need to lift for. We have to do that at the end of the year, but they are definitely working hard, and there's been a lot accomplished this summer. It always amazes me how much work gets done. It's just anything else.
Playgrounds have been used more than any other playground. Every evening,
Yeah,
I walk by, it's like full.
always.
Yeah, there's always kids out there, which is great. Thanks, Joanne. Principal's comments.
Are you gonna stand up and catch me?
Part of some comments by
So Kathleen is enjoying an anniversary dinner for her husband's evening, so I told her that I would cover her for principal comments. And one of the reasons on the list is on it unless he prefers. So you got me. So just to get you started, we're going to start off with Audrey's programs essentially. So some of our exceptional learners have been here. They work on themed weeks. They've done a Disney week. They've done a sports week. So the kids are here. They spend some time outside. They spend some time in centers. They spend some time with books. It's a little bit of everything. They're here for a full day program. And they are doing their thing with their teachers. Mrs. Colieros, Mrs. Foley, and Miss Bruce are covering our ESY programs for us this school year. And then we have a rotation of teachers who will sub and help out along the way as well. We have some of the best aides, I would say, in the Capital District. Mr. Lombardo is there for you, working with one of our little kiddos. Our aides are fantastic. They do it because they love it. And I think that is part of the reason why our aides stay. And, they work with some great teachers. And they do all kinds of things. They're doing plant units. We've got the garden outside. They do some, drawing and fine motor skills. They're busy little bees. And the idea is that they maintain their skills on the summer. That's really what we're looking and working to do. I told you we have Tiger Learning Lab here this summer. This is an opportunity to keep ELA and math skills fresh. So you'll see that we have kids researching different animals. They've got books out in front of them. They do some drawings. We try to get them involved in some art projects, and we try to just not make it school 2.0. We want to strengthen and continue some skills, but do so in a way that really keeps them engaged and working with us. They're outside, they're exploring. These are our incoming second graders. They will find some bugs. That's what they are researching. And they go out and they find them, and they're out in nature, and they're looking, and they're working hard. Part of research is that in books, right? There's also an exploration piece. That's really important, having kids outside. Mrs. Barra Martinez has done open library hours this summer. She has been here each Wednesday for a couple hours. Kids can come in and check out books over the course of the summer, and she usually has some sort of activity for the kids. So she continues to do that. Canceled last week because we had STEM in here, but the kids keep coming out and they keep spending some time here, and hopefully this will grow over time and keep kids reading and looking at books over the summer. And then I shared with you, we had our STEM enrichment program. These are, Global Foundries sends out a couple of scientists to work with our kids. You'll see the Warren Lilly kids and the Menands kids are mixed together. Initially when they come in, it's like two worlds going on, and they come in and they work together and they do a lot of really great stuff. It's amazing to see what they accomplish in a week. This group, they build these cars. So they don't come, built. They build the cars, they test the cars, they learn about circuits. So they do quite a bit of work. Then they test speed. Our kids who are working with some cars today, the sixth graders, were out trying their cars on different terrain. Right? They have the racetrack in the room, which is a nice, smooth, freshly waxed floor, and then around the pavement, the grass, and things like that. So there's a lot of experimentation that goes along. And they do some branding work. They talk about advertising. It's really it's a melding of skills that they do. That's all. All right. So, it goes by fast. Our sixth graders are going to seventh grade. They'll wrap up on Friday, and they'll continue to work through their process. But it's good to see. We try to get kids in who maybe aren't super engaged in science, right? Or aren't really engaged in math classes, and we try to get throw hands on. So it's been a great couple of weeks for them. Thank you.
When is the kindergarten warm-up week?
Next week starts on Monday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We'll end with the PTA's meet and greet. They'll be here 9 to 11. Tammy will be sending out busing information very shortly. So it's good stuff to get you to their bus ride. Highlight of the week.
Yeah. Okay, so that takes us to miscellaneous. This is a chance for board members to mention any community events or anything that they know of that's going on that might be of interest to the group, or to ask about items or suggest an item for a future board meeting. Does anybody have anything?
I have one question. Yeah, talking about the kids playing outside. Is there some set time, like after dusk, they cannot be in the property, or somebody asked me that?
It technically says we shut down around dusk. I will say it depends on the night. There are times that, in the evening, there'll be families here kind of hanging out and talking, and they sometimes move over to the courtyard where it's, there's some tables. So typically, if they're not causing trouble, we kind of let it be. Because we'll find, a lot of times our families from the apartments in particular,
Yeah. That's fine.
it's a beautiful night. They have some gathering space, and we kind of let them, as long as they're not causing trouble, we're usually pretty good.
We are very fortunate. This building is used on the weekends, at night, like nothing I have
Yeah.
ever seen. And I noticed it, Mark said, look, and I had to do something with cameras over a weekend. And I was like, oh my gosh, people are here all day. But what I will also say, how fortunate we are, that there's no damage to our property. People are so respectful. So we are very lucky.
One of the parents from the apartment Parkland, he asked me, like, I said, as long as you're with the family, if it's not like kids running around.
Yep. Yeah, they come, they hang out, they do their thing. Middle schoolers were giving me they were going really high. Chains were. But I stopped looking at that.
And they jump off, yeah.
But the kids are good, they come down, they hang out. And I guess, from a safety perspective, the police tend to do a lap through, and they don't come and bug the kids. A lot of times they stop, they wave, they talk to them, but we do have, because we are set back a little bit, we do have a presence a little bit here as well, but, generally people are pretty.
I just tell the parents to be around.
Yep.
Don't have the kids around, Crossing the street is dangerous in the night.
Yeah.
So our kids in the apartments now call it the Menands School Park. So
Yeah.
there's a new park in Menands. Like, oh, we're just going to the Menands. The parents like, oh, they're going over to the Menands School Park, and I was like, okay. So it's a destination. There you go.
My kids learn to read by Friday.
So many. The open parking lot.
Yeah.
So many kids ride bikes and learn how to do it there.
Good open space usually.
Yep.
He mentioned the crosswalk. Have you heard anything from the from the state about that, right? We sent a letter with the village saying we wanted it to be potentially a speed school zone. Have we heard anything back since we sent our letter?
I have not heard, Joanne, have you gotten anything?
I have got nothing, but as on that note, I will send the contact, I got the letter.
Yeah.
I'll find out what this, she says it's gonna take a few weeks.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, we should just follow up on that. I also just wanted to thank the teachers and administrators and everybody that has been working hard over the summer to keep the kids engaged and here in school. And, I know it's a good chance for kids and teachers to recharge, but for the teachers who are willing to put the time in, it really helps those kids stay engaged during the summer and keep those skills. And I want to thank them for doing that, for their time and their efforts and what they do for our kids, even over the summer days. Thank you. I also wanted to mention that the village is having their community night on August 19th. Don't know off the top of my head what time it is. But that's like they have activities. It's usually over at the park. They have like bounce houses and the firehouse has gone. I don't know if they will this year.
Firehouse will be there. I don't know what will be there with
What
them.
will be there, right? There will be probably guys in hats.
Yeah.
Police goes, there's different community activities. August 19th, that's a Wednesday evening. If anybody is available. I think that was all I had. Anybody else? Okay, public comments. During public comment sessions, members of the community may address the board on agenda and non-agenda items. The board president may limit remarks. We won't need to. Speakers must identify themselves and the topic on which they would like to make remarks. Does anybody online or any email comments? You can always email them at boecomments@menans.org and we will read them at our next board meeting. Or feel free to come and listen to our school business. I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn, but we are going into executive session. So could I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Could I get a motion to enter executive session?
I'll make a motion to enter executive session to discuss the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are in executive session.